Maailma tarvitsee uusia näkökulmia, uusia tapoja oppia. Siksi on syntynyt uudenlainen Kaakkois-Suomen ammattikorkeakoulu, XAMK. Kampuksena koko maailma.
About a year ago, I did an interview with young Finnish-Russian dual citizen, a young woman who was born in Russia but had spent most of her life in Finland. And I asked her about the reputation of Russia in Finland and how was it for her to grow up in Finland with a Russian background. And at first she didn't really say anything, she just looked at me. But then she told me the story from her childhood. And she said that in an elementary school, her teacher had asked the class to draw a family tree, write down the names of their closest family members and so on. And she told me that instead of writing down the members of her own family, who all came from Russia, she decided to write the names of her stepfather's family, who were all Finnish. And she told me that she did that because she really wanted to have Finnish names in her family tree, and that she really didn't want to have any Russian names there. And she said that that was because for years she had been thinking about that it's something bad to be Russian, and that being Russian is something that you have to hide. And that's exactly what she did by drawing these Finnish names there. And unfortunately, she's not the only Finnish-Russian dual citizen who thinks that Russian heritage is something that should be toned down in a Finnish society. In our research project, we asked nearly 200 dual citizens about the reputation of Russia in Finland. And as many as a third of them thinks that it is not that great. For example, a third of them thinks that Russian culture is not really appreciated in Finland, or that having a Russian name can even make it harder to get a job in Finland. And as sad as these kind of prejudices are, it is important to remember that this is not an exception. On the contrary, this is a global phenomenon. Every country in this world have their own minorities and their group of people who are marginalized or who are somehow treated to be different than the mainstream society. And if you think about it, the whole idea of a country is based on this notion that there's this border around us that separates us from the others, and that those others behind the borders are somehow different than us. And countries have used and are still using this kind of us versus them mentality to define themselves, to define who they are. And although these borders have been useful in separating countries from each other geographically, like this is Finland, this is Russia, and here is the border between them, we run into troubles as soon as we start to imply this us versus them mentality to individuals. When we start saying that this is how Finnish people are, this is how Russian people are, and here is the difference. Because the problem is, of course, that your nationality doesn't say anything about you as a human being. It might give a hint about where you or your parents have been born, or the languages that you speak. It might, it doesn't necessarily even do that. But it definitely doesn't say anything about you as a person. For example, if I do something stupid, if I behave like a total ass, you can find many reasons and excuses for it, but my nationality is not one of them. I'm not being stupid because I have a Finnish passport. And if you want to understand my behavior, then you have to get to know me instead of just thinking that, oh yeah, sure, he's a Finn, that's how they are, what did you expect? So the point that I'm trying to make here is that we can't really make assumptions about people based on their nationalities or their backgrounds. Because if we do that, we end up creating a society in which certain individuals or certain groups are treated unfairly and unequally through no fault of their own. And we end up creating a society in which people feel the need to hide certain aspects of themselves in order not to be discriminated against. Or like the family tree example shows, we end up creating in a society where little school kids think that they have to lie about their families. So the challenge here is that our world has become mobile. People move across the borders more than ever before. And that is why these old-fashioned ways of dividing people into us and them based on geographical borders just don't work anymore. We need new ways to define ourselves and to define who we are as a nation, who we are as a society. For example, we can say that our society is based on democracy, or that our society is based on respect for human rights. But we can't say that our society is based on every individual having a certain kind of background or the same nationality. It just doesn't work like that anymore. Because if we do that, we end up excluding individuals who don't deserve to be excluded. And we end up silencing individuals who could otherwise have a significant contribution to our society. And that is not good for anyone. Thank you.